Hey guys, this is Liv with Live Life Outdoors, and I am in South Central Pennsylvania in roughly Zone 6A, 6B. And today I wanted to talk about planning for your future garden now. That might seem early to some of you, but I promise there is a reason, and we're going to get into that. Now, this video is for every gardener because it'll help you have success, but this video is also definitely geared towards the gardeners who are trying to ensure success for a greater harvest. And just to make sure that you are actually utilizing the food in your garden. So if that sounds like you, make sure that you stick around for this. So this is the time in the middle of the harvest season when I make plans for next year because everything is fresh in my mind. So right now, one of the biggest things that I have discussed with my partner is not having cherry tomatoes or grape tomatoes next season. We love them. They are very prolific though, which is great if you need a whole bunch of tomatoes and you're snacking on them regularly. However, we've had some, maybe TMI, but digestive issues with acid reflux, and just like snacking on tomatoes like that, it's just not what we're doing right now. It doesn't feel great for the stomach. So having just I have like thousands. This isn't just hundreds. This is thousands of like tiny little tomatoes. It's not really making sense for us right now. So that's one of the things to think about. What did you actually eat from your garden? Did your diet change for some reason and you need to cut back on something that, even if you're a longtime gardener, maybe you've been growing for 4, 5, 6 years now. You've grown something every single year, but suddenly your diet, your lifestyle has changed. You need to account for that because there's no reason to keep growing the same things if you're not actually using them. You need to switch it up for what actually works for you at that current time, which can be hard to do because you're kind of in a groove and it's just what we do. And that's what it was for us. So like last season, I did talk about wanting to cut back on the tomatoes, and I did. I did less of the cherry tomatoes, but I mean, I have I want to say I did 6 plants. That's a lot. There's a ton there. We don't need all of that. So I don't think we're going to do any of them. If we do, we'll do just one. That's it. We do still utilize tomatoes in our cooking, however. So even if we're not snacking on them fresh, I do want them to cook with, put on sandwiches. So we did talk about doing maybe only like 3 of the slicers. So these are the pineapple tomatoes, and this is something else you want to note. These did very well. They're gorgeous. I'm not seeing any cracking going on. I do have the faceated blossom, but that just happens. No big deal. But they're very beautiful tomatoes. Nice, decent slicers. They tasted good. Very prolific. There are a ton on this plant. So that is one that we might consider doing again. Was it our absolute fave? No, but I would put it rather high on the list because it's overall a well-rounded tomato. So that one's going to be a potential. And then coming over here, we've got a volunteer. So this is a great example of a variety that has cracking issues. So these are what I'm pretty sure are the Chernobyl or the Powers tomato. We love them. They have great flavor. And the first year they did pretty decent, but the subsequent years they just consistently cracked. Like every single tomato, it was not worth having them in the garden. So unfortunately, even though we really like the flavor, that one came off our list. And like I said, it's just a volunteer that popped up. So that's something to think about. You may have to part with something that you really like just because it doesn't do well for one reason or another. So that, you want to put something in place that makes more sense for your climate And if I have to dodge away here, guys, I'm sorry, there's a lot of bees. The other thing I decided is I'm not doing squash next season. I had spent a lot of time picking winter squash that would store well, with the thought in mind of wanting to have garden food during the winter as well. But it just doesn't do well in raised garden beds. It's not really what it's meant for. It did pretty great last season when I had it in the bed over there by the fence that was kind of lower to the ground and it had room to sprawl out. But I just don't have spaces set up for that right now. So I'm gonna table that, focus a lot more on summer squash, so our round zucchini, because we use a lot of that and really like it. And that'll give me more room for that. And then I had the brassicas, which I believe at this point, I want to say that this should be the Brussels sprouts. There was also some sprouting broccoli. But I did these too late for my area. So I either needed to do them super, super early spring or start them now for a fall harvest. So that was my lesson for that part. Then back here, our bee is these mosquitoes moonlighting on our spoon tomatoes. So the reason that I don't like spoon tomatoes is they are teeny tiny little tomatoes, and in typical chain tomato fashion, they start to turn at the back, and the bottom tomatoes, let's see if we've got any here. The bottom tomatoes are going to be green for a while, right? Because they're turning at different rates. But look how tiny they are and how many are on a thing. It just becomes unrealistic to actually pull the back ones off like one at a time when they're ready. So it becomes a very big hot mess. If you have the time for that and the patience, amazing. It's just not for me. Alright, what else, guys? Okay, so we're moving through here. These are the Woolly Kate tomatoes. I really wanted to do these again because I liked the flavor. They did great in the container last season. So if you're a container gardener, these are your jam. Like, I neglected these so much and they did so well. And they're gorgeous. They are small. Like, they're not a grape tomato, but they're also like, that's as big as they're gonna get. That's a different tomato, of course, but that's about as big as they're gonna get. They're not a nice slicer, really, more like a snacking tomato. But the reason that I think I'm not gonna do these again, at least not for next season, is they take a very long time to set. So if you have a short growing season, the Woolly Kate are not for you. The Woolly Kate are also not for you if you don't like peaches because they're fuzzy. Because these are fuzzy tomatoes. The whole plant's fuzzy. The leaves, the tomatoes. But yeah, so love that one. It is very prolific, puts off a lot of tomatoes. And like I said, does well being neglected. So it'd be a great tomato for places struggling with drought. But it just takes a very long time for the fruit to set. So not great for short season. And let's come over here to our lima beans. Alright, so I, as a kid, did not like lima beans at all. But I like trying things in the garden because, for example, we don't like green beans from the store, but we do the dragon tongue bush beans and the rattlesnake beans, and we absolutely love snacking on those. So I did want to try lima beans, and most of these aren't ready yet. I was able to take some inside that were, but I had to look up how to utilize them because seeing as though I have just not liked them and not bought them myself, and I don't even think you typically get them in a pod when you get them from the store. I think you end up getting them in like the freezer section or something, but I didn't know how to eat them. So I looked that up. You cannot eat them raw. So that's good to know. This is why you should definitely check on things that you're not familiar with if you do something new in the garden. I'm so sorry about that, guys. But yeah, definitely make sure that you check just to be sure. And also consider that, do you have room to give to something that is toxic or poisonous in a certain state if you have kids? Because if you have kids that like to just go up and grab stuff off the plants and snack on them, which is super awesome, you just want to make sure that you don't have anything that's going to make them sick if they do that. So lima beans definitely need their own space away from the kids. There's other things too, for sure. So like, I think like wonderberries at a certain stage, they're poisonous. The other beans that I did one season was the moonshadow hyacinth bean. Same thing. If you don't eat them at the right stage, those can make you sick. So that's something to just keep in mind. And here's those darn spoon tomatoes again, guys. So I didn't plant these this season. They are just volunteers from the last season. So I have just been yanking these out as I see them. I definitely don't need more volunteers. You can also tell by the leaves, like they're just very specific and small. So I knew when they popped up because I saw those tiny little leaves. All right, so we're just gonna put that on this pile back here. Come back around. Another big drastic change that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the straw. I really grappled with this one because it is great at protecting the soil. It keeps it damp. I don't have to water as often. And I mean, like, I can go literal days without watering, even when it's 90 degrees outside. So it's keeping my soil from turning hydrophobic, and it's also keeping weed seeds out. I rarely ever have to pull weeds out of the garden beds themselves, but it is prime real estate for the bugs when we get a lot of rain. So right now it's not really an issue because it's been dry, but this layer right here, right under, is where the bugs like to hang out. So the earwigs, the slugs, those have been my biggest issues for my peppers, especially my sweet peppers. And those are something that I enjoy snacking on. So I would like to do something to be able to actually eat my peppers. At this point, I've only gotten a handful of peppers that have been edible, and I have like probably 12 pepper plants, guys. So that's not great. So I do think that's one of the drastic changes I'm going to make, which, and again, remember when you are well past this season and you are no longer in the thick of dealing with the bugs, and there's two bees getting into a fight. Like, they are two different kinds of bees. So I'm going to move over here real quick. When you're in the thick of it and you're battling the bugs, you remember which bugs are giving you issues. You remember all the tactics that you tried. You remembered what's working. You're going to quickly forget that once the season is over and you get to just breathe a sigh of relief because you no longer have to battle the bugs. So that's something to also write down, the fact that, you know, I'm really struggling. I'm not getting any of my peppers, so I really need to do something about that. And this is the second year now, so I have to. So that's something to write down, you know, in your journal. Be like, must do this thing. And also, if you don't know what type of journal to purchase, or if you feel like you're going to forget things, I'm going to put a link below. I do actually have a garden journal that I made for this type of thing. It's a garden prompt journal. Distracted by a bee, sorry. Doing its thing. Anyways, it's got garden prompts, and it'll help you figure out what you're supposed to put in there. So I'll put that link in the description below. Feel free to check that out and grab yourself one. And there's also a spot in there for you to put your wish list. So like your garden tools, your seeds, which is another thing I like to do during this time as well. I like to mark down what I would like to get for the next season. If I want to focus on disease-resistant varieties, cracking-resistant varieties, And that's for everything. It's not just for tomatoes. I just happen to have a lot of tomatoes, guys. But everything in your garden, just write it down. Write all your notes down while it's fresh in your mind. And then, because I can tell you, I have not done it one of the seasons, and I couldn't remember for the life of me why I disliked a tomato, or if I, or why I liked it, or why. I couldn't tell you anything about it. And so that's an issue, because I want to make sure that I am using my space in a way that makes sense, because I don't want to be putting stuff in the garden that's taking up space and just being eaten alive by bugs all the time or cracking all the time. So these right here are my Sart Roulois. They are my all-time favorite tomato. They are not very prolific, so I usually do about 4 plants just to be sure that I get some. However, the reason they get a place in my garden is, 1, they are my absolute for flavor profile, and 2, alright, got too close, alright, sorry B. 2, they do very well in my damp climate. So it does rain very often here. I do struggle a lot with tomatoes if they're not crack resistant varieties. These do very well. Even if they do crack, they heal very well on their own and very quickly. So I very rarely have to throw any away just because they cracked. So that's a great bonus. Another thing is, they're just gorgeous. I mean, look at that, guys. They're this deep purple on the top when they're getting the sun. And then on the bottom, that green is going to change to this beautiful yellowish white color. They're just beautiful. So they do pretty well. Don't have too many issues with those. Those are always going to have a place in my garden. And what else? I think that's kind of it. Definitely some big changes, like I said. Get rid of the straw, and we'll do a living mulch in place instead. So that's going to be a bunch of lettuce seeds sprinkled about, which is great because it's also food, right? And you can eat those as microgreens. We're not going to do any squash. We are going to get the greenhouse set up, so that's a big thing, which is going to free up some galvanized beds. They have flowers in them right now, but I think I'm going to commandeer 2 of them for carrot beds, which is what our plan was for this space up here. So if you guys have been following for any length of time, we did have a log bed here, and this has had all kinds of things in it. It had carrots, it had squash, radishes, it's had lots of things. But the soil in here was too compact, so we went ahead and moved those logs, made different beds out of them. But I want to get some galvanized beds over here, fill those up, and do carrots. And I think that's pretty much it for right now. So yeah, if you are really focused on honing in on what's working for you so that you can optimize what comes out of your garden, this is the way to do that. You need to be making your notes, writing down what works, what doesn't. If something, maybe there's something you liked, but it just didn't pan out, like I said, like those Chernobyl tomatoes. We absolutely love those, but they weren't great for the space. So that was just food that was going to waste, and something else could have gone there. The squash, the winter squash not working out, melons not working out for me. That's prime real estate that I could be using for other things that are actually going to produce food. So this goes back to what I said about if it's not working for you, yank it out. Don't feel bad. That's what you have to do if you are trying to maximize your harvest. You really need to focus on the best things to put in your garden: crack resistant, disease resistant, blossom end rot resistant, whatever it may be, powdery mildew resistant. Focus on that, and if something you try doesn't work out, yank it out halfway through the season, put something in its place. That is how to maximize your growing space and maximize your harvest. Alright guys, so I will see you in the next one. I'll put something up top for you to watch, and don't forget, if you need that garden prompt journal, that is down in the description.